Welcome to Cruising the Kimberley with APT. My name is Scott, and with me today is Jacinta, and the two of us had the most incredible opportunity last year to cruise that Kimberley coastline. Jacinta, do you want to share with us what were some of your most fondest memories of our cruise?
Oh, Scott, thanks so much for having me today. I'm so excited to talk about this trip. It is, without doubt, one of the most incredible places on Earth. I think one of the biggest impressions for me was that you're on this cruise where you don't see any cars, there are no roads, there's no infrastructure. It's just us with nature. It's just absolutely incredible.
I agree. I think prior to my trip, one of the things I was thinking of was I didn't quite appreciate how remote and exclusive the region was. I think for our 9-night cruise, we only saw 2 other commercial ships or boats. So every day, stepping onto the sand, and it felt like you were the first people to discover the land for the day. And the incredible rock formations, the colours of the Kimberley, the flora and fauna were just phenomenal. The wonderful feeling of peace that came over you as well, just being at one with nature was certainly a huge highlight. So it was a huge thrill, and only available with the expertise of APT.
Absolutely. And with APT, of course, we are over 90 years old, very, very proudly Australian family-owned business. And we have actually been domestic touring for just over 50 years. So we really are experts in all things Australia, and even more so, 30 years touring the Kimberley region. So we really know all the ins and outs of the Kimberley, all the hot spots. And of course, we have our own ships, our own network of lodges, and our own network of vehicles in this region.
It was fascinating when we went up there last year and just saw the office in Broome as well, and see where the operational side of the business is conducted. And it's a huge program that they've got there to run, but it's good and pleasing to know that the expertise are certainly in the destination. Now, today, folks, we're going to give you an insight into what is expedition cruising and why is the Kimberley so incredible at expedition cruising. And for me, expedition cruising is all about the destination and immersing yourself in the destination without any limitation. And I think for me, that's really where our small ships came into their own, getting into some of the regions that big ships wouldn't fit, and being able to immerse yourself into the cultures, the destination, the flora, the fauna, and some of the most iconic images of the Kimberley. We're going to have a look at a map now, and this is a 9-night cruise. This is our cruise option. So we operate it in obviously vice versa. So it's Broome to Wyndham or vice versa. But from Broome, you'll head north up through the Buccaneer Archipelago, Adele Island into horizontal waterfalls, Raft Point, Montgomery Reef. We're going to talk to you about all of this today. Careening Bay was a real highlight, wasn't it, Jacinta? We explored Careening Bay first thing in the morning, and it was one of the most idyllic moments on the trip.
Absolutely. And this was really memorable for me and for the group on the Zodiac I was traveling with, because it was our largest croc sighting for the entire cruise. And boy, was that a thrill.
It was huge, but we not only saw the crocs, but we saw so many birds. And I remember the Zodiac weaving its way through the mangroves and through some magnificent rock formations as well. Careening Bay was a huge highlight. We then come up, we keep dotting our way along, visiting Big Island. We also go to Jar Island and, of course, King George Falls. So it's a 9-night itinerary, 10 days. One of the things that I took out of it was we hugged the coastline. So you can almost always see the coastline on the side of the ship. So it's not deep sea or anything like that. And there are no days at sea. So every single day we're off the ship on our Zodiacs and going exploring this amazing Kimberley coastline.
Every day starts with a sense that something amazing is about to happen. See and do things you never thought you would. with moments so rare you couldn't repeat them if you wanted.
How amazing is the video? It reminds us of so many good times, doesn't it?
Absolutely. And it's one of those destinations where no matter how much video footage or imagery you see, seeing it in real life, there is just nothing like it. And of course, with APT, we've got our two sister ships travelling the Kimberley Coast, the Island Sky and the Caledonian Sky. And these ships are just sensational. They really feel like a home away from home. There's 75 crew members. And of course, we only have 110 passengers. And 10 of those passengers are actually made up of our expedition team. So we've got ornithologists, biologists, marine biologists, and they are absolute experts in their field. And Scott, I know you'll talk to us more about the expedition guides a little bit later on. The other great thing, of course, about the ship is it is all-inclusive. So your meals, your drinks, tipping, everything is covered for you. There are lots of beautiful areas on the ship to relax. There's the lovely fine dining restaurant that's open for breakfast, lunch and dinner. But my favourite part to dine, and I think, Scott, you might agree with me here, is the alfresco dining area. So this is open for breakfast, lunch and dinner, and it's all a la carte dining. And there was a bit of a debate on the ship whether the favourite time of day was either watching the sun rise on the alfresco deck having breakfast or watching the sun set having dinner. Scott, what was your favourite?
It's a good topic. I think, gee whiz, it's hard. So with sunrise, I mean, we would go out to the back deck and we'd have the most beautiful breakfast and watch the sunrise. And I know that there was so much anticipation at breakfast, and we were talking about the day's excursions and what we had planned. But I think probably my favourite would have been the sunset. So then at the end of the day, back on that back deck there in the alfresco dining, enjoying a beautiful meal, great company. But I think at the end of the day, we were reflecting on the day and all of the wonderful times, sharing the photos. It was great to share some photos as well. And then you watch the sunset and it's another day, in the memory bank. So I think I'd probably bank the sunsets. That was my favourite.
I think I'd have to agree there. And you can see in the image here, the colours of the Kimberley sunset are unlike anything else on Earth. We have some beautiful cabins on board our Island and Caledonian Sky ships. The leading cabin types are actually 25% larger than any other ship her size. So you've got ample space to move around. We also have a number of different balcony suites available. And this is fantastic for those who just love to sit outside, take in the beautiful views of the Kimberley Coast, and of course still having all the beautiful spacious rooms that we do have on offer. Now, I mentioned earlier that there's lots of places to relax on board the ship, and this is no exception, the main lounge area. This was a fantastic area. It was very relaxed. It's where most people congregated at the end of each day to share stories on what they saw and experienced. And it's also a great place where our expedition guides actually came in every evening and gave us updates and live presentations, either based on things we'd already seen or things that we were yet to see. So really incredible insights on the marine biology of the region, the geology of the region, and even just the natural environment. So some fantastic areas to kick back and relax on board the ship.
Yeah, I agree. It felt so homely, didn't it? It just felt so comfortable. I loved it. Let's have a look at what a day on board an expedition cruise looks like. And as I mentioned from the top, this is really what it's all about for me, is immersing ourselves in the Kimberley without limitation. And nothing does that better than our sky ships. So we're going to wake up nice and early. We're going to have a beautiful brekkie, as Jacinta talked about, with the sun rising. And then we're going to head out for our first Zodiac exploration for the day. So we've got 10 expedition leaders and 10 Zodiacs. So the biggest benefit right now is that we're not operating in shifts. Everyone gets off the ship at the exact same time. We all go off on an expedition and enjoy the morning. We come back at lunchtime. We'll have a delicious lunch, and then we'll be back for another expedition in the afternoon. So some expeditions we would not get off the Zodiac. We're going to go and experience a reef system or an island or whatever it might be. And other days we will do a landing, and so you'll get off the ship. At the evening, we're going to then hear the presentation, like Jacinta talked about, where our expedition leaders will detail what we had experienced for the day and what we witnessed. And what I loved about that is that it wasn't an hour hearing about rocks. It was in really engaging bite-sized pieces. So we might have of an evening, 3 or 4 of the expedition leaders talk about their area of specialty, and it might be 15 minutes on the whales, and then 15 on the flora, and 15 on the rocks, or whatever the day might have entailed. And then we finish our day with that beautiful dinner out on the back deck as well. So it is a perfect day. Every day is a perfect day on an expedition cruise, and nothing could be clearer than the Kimberley. Now, I wanted to talk to you a little bit more about these Zodiacs, because this is really the platform for you to enjoy the destination and get the most out of it. The biggest pillar here is that we've got 10 Zodiacs for the 110 guests on board, 10 Zodiac expedition leaders who take you away. So what I loved about it, Jacinta, was that we had people in our group that had different interests and different, I guess, levels of interest as well. So it's not a case of everybody doing a 3-hour Zodiac expedition. There were some days where there'd be a couple of expeditions for an hour, a couple for 2, a couple for 3, and a couple for 4. So you could pick which one, and they would change them each day depending on the demand. So if more people were looking at longer expeditions, you'd go off on the longer trips. But you loved the Zodiacs as well, didn't you?
I absolutely loved the Zodiacs. This was my first ever cruise where we were on Zodiacs every single day. The sense of adventure that it brought, not knowing what we were going to see, how much wildlife or marine life we were going to spot, was just magic.
And really easy to get on and off as well. So when we get on the ship, it's just simply walking straight onto the Zodiac, and it's just like stepping down a step. And this is a wet landing, as you can see here. So the waves were crashing a little bit today, but it was still so easy. You just swing your feet around and walk straight out, and that's as easy as it is getting on and off a Zodiac. So it was a really great experience. The Zodiacs were huge, and talking Zodiacs, there's no better way to experience Adele Island.
Absolutely. We were so lucky here. Adele Island is a really pristine environment where you've got this huge big coral reef. And because the draft of the Zodiacs is so shallow, we have incredible access right up close and personal to the island and its surrounds. Thousands and thousands of different bird species call this place home, particularly for breeding grounds. Bird species that we'd never even heard of before, that we got to witness up close and personal. It's also a fantastic area to see marine life. So this was the first day that we actually spotted a turtle, and our entire Zodiac was so excited. Little did we know, within the next hour, we'd counted another 10 turtles and up to 15 stingrays and a bunch of other incredible marine life. We've got a little video that I want to show you all now that showcases this with our very own expedition leader in Adele Island.
Most of our guests are really well travelled. They've seen a lot of Australia, and many of them, of course, have travelled overland in the Kimberley, but hardly any of them have seen the Kimberley Coast.
The special thing about coming to the Kimberley on the small ships is Adele Island, and the water is quite shallow, so you can actually see all this wildlife. First time we went there, we saw evidence of crocodiles. Second time, we saw a small one, but then after that we started seeing much larger crocodiles. In the lagoon, we have leopard rays around there, we've got plenty of green sea turtles, and later in the season they're all mating. And then there's thousands of birds out there and a lot of different species. We have the brown booby, which is the most amazing, beautiful bird to photograph. It just stops and looks at you. It's just as inquisitive as we are. So going to Adele is very, very special.
Well, the big benefit of doing expedition cruising on the small vessel is the Zodiacs that we have on board, taking us to some special parts of this island itself, and to get to cruise close to these birds. They have the opportunity spotting marine mammals, seeing crocodiles up close. That just offers a different depth and a perception that you don't get to see anywhere else.
So to see those sort of things and experience it makes every day exciting coming to a place like this, and I pinch myself many, many times that this is what I do.
I I think we pinched ourselves with the opportunity to experience it. I think when you talked about the turtles, that was definitely my favourite, and the fact that we kept spotting all these beautiful turtles swimming next to our Zodiac was brilliant. The next was a huge highlight, and I think this was probably something that everybody was looking forward to. You know, David Attenborough has described this region as one of the natural wonders of the world, and it's easy to see why. So we came along into the Buccaneer Archipelago and up into horizontal waterfalls. And what makes this destination just so unique is that what you can see here is there's huge volumes of water in between each of the chasms. And with the huge tides of the Kimberley, at the change of the tide, there can be it can be an 11 or 12 metre tide. So there's a huge volume of water trying to pass through these small little gaps. And because of the significance of the tide, it creates a horizontal waterfall. So the top can be some 4 metres higher than the bottom level. The best way to experience this region, we did the Zodiacs up and down Talbot Bay to start, and then we jumped on a helicopter ride and we flew over the falls. And this was one of the photos I took to give you a really good vantage point and gives you a totally different aerial perspective of the falls, because then when we got back down onto the water, we jumped on board the jet boats, and this was a real buzz for us. So we positioned ourselves right in the middle of the big the gap here, and the jet boat just pumped its way straight through these horizontal waterfalls. You can notice that it's not at 4 meters, it's definitely at a safe level, but the adrenaline and the buzz that we got from this first one was a beauty. We went up and had a look at the next gap, but as you can see here, we couldn't pass through because it was just so strong. But just sitting the jet boat inside the falls and feeling the almighty rush and power of the water that came past us was a really big thrill for our guests. And I know we were all woohooing as we went through the falls. It was such a great experience, the horizontal waterfalls.
It sure was. It was such an adrenaline rush going through and feeling the force of that water. It was just spectacular.
So next, I think we had Raft Point.
We did indeed have Raft Point. And one of the things that really surprised me here was the last thing any of us expected to see while cruising Australia's most remote coastline is an art gallery. And this is what our expedition leaders kept referring to as we were making our way to Raft Point. We are going to see an art gallery. And the art gallery here, of course, is 5,000-year-old Aboriginal rock art. It was absolutely spectacular. It's only accessible by water, so very, very remote, so very exclusive for us. We jumped on board the Zodiacs. And the great thing here again about having such a large expedition team is 2 of the expedition team members would always be on site about an hour before we arrived, which was fantastic because it meant that they screen the area, make sure everything's ready to go. And as you can see here in the video, this is a wet landing, much like Scott described before. So I think having wet shoes is an absolute must when you're doing the Kimberley cruise. Once we landed on shore, we were actually treated to a very special welcome to country, which was such a privilege. And the first one we'd experienced on the cruise, and the first one actually that I'd experienced at all. And Scott, I know you really enjoyed the welcome to country as well.
I loved it. It was a really great way to come onto the land, and we had 2 of our local guides that talked to us about their family, their culture. We had a small little fire, and then we all were officially welcomed with the smoke. I was also thrilled that one of the local guides had an Essendon Guernsey under his top, but in any case, poor fella. But it was great. And then we had the hike.
Absolutely. We had the hike. So this is from the shore up to the art gallery where we can see all the different artwork. It is quite a steep incline and quite uneven terrain. So we do have to walk all the way up. And when we get there, we are greeted by this impressive, very vibrant artwork that you can see pictured here. And we actually have a local Indigenous guide who joins us and tells us all the stories about these ancient spirits who are over 5,000 years old. So it really is an incredible day out and a very humbling experience.
Your comment privilege was certainly something that we felt that day, didn't we? To have so remote to have had that access. Another great experience right now is Montgomery Reef, and another huge highlight of the Kimberley cruise. So what Montgomery Reef's all about is at high tide, it's just a normal reef system. But then when the reef, when the water drops 11 or 12 meters, the reef actually rises and becomes quite exposed. So at that time, there's lots and lots of dugongs around, lots and lots of birds that are trying to to grab the birds there. And we have the opportunity to go up and down all the different channels of the reef and experience thousands and thousands of small little waterfalls. And I think we've got a really great video now which sort of talks to you about the day at Montgomery Reef.
Favourite time of day on the cruise is definitely the morning. Everyone's just waking up for the day and they're just excited about what's happening, so you can feel that buzz and you are part of it. We have a group of experts in our expedition team and they come from different parts of the world, but they all love the Kimberley, and being out in the Zodiacs with those people, you're going to get a wonderful experience.
Montgomery Reef is truly a natural wonder of the world, and it's regularly listed as a highlight for the guests. It's one of the largest inshore reefs in the world. In fact, it covers an area of about 400 square kilometres, and it's subject to these enormous tides. So when the tide is high, it's underwater. You wouldn't even know it's there. You can almost sail the ship straight over the top of it. When the tide is coming down then, at a certain point on the tide, the reef appears to emerge from the ocean. Where we access Montgomery Reef, there's a deep water scar. And so we take our Zodiacs right the way along this thing. So on either side of the Zodiacs, there is cascading water, there are turtles popping up everywhere, birds flying over the top of the reef. It's just a natural phenomenon.
The best thing I like about small ship cruising is basically the places we get to go to that the bigger ships can't get into. Pass over this by plane, you won't get the same interaction and feeling as with these little boats that actually takes us into the river, into the waterfall. And a nice thing, once we get to the end, we actually stop the boats and you just let that flow of the water push you out, and just to feel that strength of how quickly you move, you're not using your engine. And I think that's what makes it special.
There are occasions when the tide is relatively slight, and that's just nature. But if you're lucky enough to get a really great tide and the weather's kind, it's just truly breathtaking.
That was a huge buzz, wasn't it, Montgomery Reef, and getting to witness it firsthand. And then we're off to Biggie Island.
Yes, Biggie Island. Now, the one thing that first took my breath away about Biggie Island was the contrast of the beautiful, bright, red-coloured rocks with the turquoise, blue-green coloured water. It was just a beautiful place to sail into with our Zodiacs. But, of course, the biggest site for Biggie Island and the most popular is the Indigenous rock art. Now, the rock art that we witnessed earlier was 5,000 years old. And with Biggie Island, we're talking over 20,000 years old for some of the rock art here. So it really is incredible. Once again, we're joined by a specialist local Indigenous guide who tells us the stories of some of the artwork that dates back 20,000 years. So a really special experience, and another one that takes us back through the ancient history of Australia.
And then something again so unique was our opportunity out to Vansittart Bay. And this is Pierre, one of our expedition leaders, looking every bit an expedition leader. And we took our way into Vansittart Bay, and gee whiz, what another great day this was. And this is where we discovered a Douglas C-53. And the history behind this was in February of 1942, this aircraft became lost at sea. It found land, and then it found this particular patch which it decided to pull it down on. There was mud flats, so it looked a really safe landing. So it brought it down. 6 men survived the crash. They then spent the next 4 to 5 days out there, surviving on the land, making their own water or capturing their own water, until a Qantas seaplane found them and rescued them back in that period. But that was quite amazing. And of course, because the aircraft was made out of aluminium, there's virtually no rust at all. So you can actually go and have a look around it. That was quite amazing. And right next to it was the mud flats that they actually landed it on. And this was just covered with thousands and thousands of fiddler crabs. And now we can't put a photo of every animal that we saw on this trip because we'd be here for an hour. But I love these little fiddler crabs, and they were running around the little mud flats and the beautiful, vibrant colours. And they felt that we were a bit of predator, so they'd start snapping at us, and this was a great morning. But, so we go out to Jar Island, cave networks, more and more Aboriginal rock art to experience. But I tell you, the real highlight for me was something that was not brochured, not planned at all. And this was a really secluded and remote cove that we found ourselves in. Now, obviously, with the Kimberley having huge tides, there's only certain areas that we can access to depending on the tides. So the expedition was timed to a second, and we had our little expedition straight into this remote little cove there, which had the most beautiful beach. You know, it was picture postcard, and it had a small little network of caves off to the side there. And we just went and sort of discovered this land and had a bit of a walk through. It was a photographer's dream. There was just so many beautiful images to take photos of, and great red rocks, as you described earlier. And that was just a real highlight, but it turned into something that, you know, we weren't expecting, but it was a super highlight for us.
Absolutely. That was just beautiful that afternoon. And one of those days where we were the first people to walk on the beach.
Well, we were the first person, but we may not have been the first animal. And this was a great photo that we took. So we came across to another beach, and the expedition guides were on high alert, weren't they, as soon as we landed at this beach, because what you can see in the foreground there is crocodile prints leading from the ocean into this small little body of water, this small little billabong. So they were walking around to make sure that the crocodile was not going to come out, because as you can see, there's only prints one way. So the crocodile hadn't come back out yet. So we had a little bit of a look on this beach as well, and we didn't go too close to that water little billabong, but another great little expedition for us today.
And that's one of the best things, Scott, I think about the Kimberley, is that sense of adventure where you don't know what's going to happen every day, because there's no set structured itinerary of the marine life we might see. And there was one particular day that just, I think for both of us, was such a highlight. We talked about it for weeks and months afterwards, in that we just finished our lunch and we were having a bit of a relaxing afternoon. I think you were on your way to the cabin, if I'm correct.
Yes, I was.
And I was on my way.
I got an emergency phone call. Quick.
Got an emergency phone call. I'd wandered into the bridge to see the captain, and he just had this immense look of excitement on his face. And he said, "We've seen some whales." So, of course, within 15 minutes, I'd called all of our travelling party. We had our life jackets on, and we were down waiting to board the Zodiacs. And from there, let's have a look at this short video to see what we were able to witness with our captain on board. Hi folks, here we are just off the coast of the Kimberley on an impromptu whale watching, and I'm very lucky to be joined by Captain Jose here. Thanks for coming along, Jose. Now, I just wanted to ask you a quick question. We've got the beautiful island sky behind us here. What is it that you love most about the APT small ship experience?
Well, the small ships is a different experience, of course, as you say. Brings everybody together. We can get to places that the big ones cannot get, of course. Our draft allows us to go further in different places, and especially here in the Kimberleys, the area is quite shallow, so we don't have so much water under keel, and the currents are also very extreme, and the tides as well. So small ships allow us to experience more in the Kimberleys. And
9 o'clock from the ship.
Give me 1 second. 9 o'clock from the ship, and also. The experience on board. It's a luxury vessel, but also bring you this, how can I say, the experience of expedition as well. So I think you get it all.
Wonderful. Yeah. Thank you so much, Jose.
Sure, my pleasure.
Great impromptu video with the Captain Jose on our way out on a little expedition. And gee, we were treated to one of the biggest highlights on the trip.
Absolutely. We were treated to an incredible humpback whale who was teaching her calf how to breach. And that to me is what small ship cruising is all about. It is that true sense of adventure and those moments that just take your breath away. And this right here is another one of those moments, of course, King George Falls. Now, King George Falls is absolutely spectacular. We woke up in the morning, had our breakfast, and straight away we were all on the Zodiacs. And we actually cruised at around King George River for about 15 to 20 kilometres. So that in itself, before you even get to the falls, is so thrilling. We spotted dugongs, a couple of crocodiles, some little rock wallabies that are famous in this region and endemic to this region, and also some incredible marine life. But as we get closer and closer to the falls, you're anticipating the roar of the water, which, little did we know, Scott, is generally around that sort of June, July, August time. Late August or mid to late August is when the water starts to dry up a little bit. But one thing that really surprised me here is when you get to the base of the falls, even if there's no water, they tower 80 metres above you. So seeing these beautiful rock formations and the height of 80 metres from the Zodiac was absolutely spectacular. And we do have a little video here that introduces King George Falls, again with some of our expedition leaders. Let's have a look.
King George Falls, or King George River, it's a definite big highlight.
We anchor the ship in Kalama Bay, and then we have a 15-kilometre journey on the Zodiacs. And it's just the wildlife you can see in that river, from dugongs to crocodiles to the bird life, and the amazing scenery.
You have the opportunity to get off the Zodiac boat directly onto this rough terrain, then hike up to the point.
The rocks in Kimberley you just fall in love with. And then you reach the falls.
You get to view this amazing escarpment basically from the top of the falls, to experience this landscape from a different angle.
The Kimberley season starts close to the end of May and goes right through till September. There'll be a lot of water up there till the end of the season when you're virtually touching the dribble. So every time you come here, you're going to see something different. You're going to love it.
One of the things I loved about it when you came into the Gorge was that the sheer size, as you described, 80 metres. I mean, that's higher than Niagara Falls. And then when we went along the big walk to take us where you took this photo, our guide said that more people hike Everest than hike King George Falls, which really put it in perspective, didn't it? Just how remote this region is.
And just how privileged we were to be there and experience it. And the hike in itself is only about 2 kilometres, but it is up some pretty steep boulders. So it is certainly not for the faint-hearted, but for those who love that sense of adventure, you will absolutely enjoy every moment of it.
Okay, so we've got the cruise. So that's the cruise on its own, but you can then naturally extend. So we've got a couple of really great opportunities here for you. A couple of nights in Kununurra and then into the Purnululu National Park, into our Bungle's exclusive lodge. So we've got this as a small little add-on from the cruise, or alternative to that, we'll actually combine the Kimberley cruise with our #1 selling land itinerary, which is the Kimberley Complete. So the Kimberley Complete takes you all through the Great Northern Highway, the Gibb River Road. You'll get to experience, the Gibb River Road is 660 kilometres. This was a cattle track in the 1960s, now one of our great four-wheel drive tracks. So you'll enjoy that throughout the Kimberley. And then staying in our network of lodges. Now, this is the tent. I know that you love this as well, Jacinta, but having your own permanent tent. So you've got hardwood floorboards, motel-style beds, full ensuite behind you with flush toilets, hot and cold showers, and sitting on your own little balcony there looking at the beautiful range or the national park is a beautiful highlight for you as well. So the exclusive wilderness lodges will also experience Piccaninny Creek. We'll go out to Cathedral Gorge. Cathedral Gorge is a natural amphitheatre in the Purnululu National Park. You've got the opportunity to take on the air and see the Bungles from a completely different view. We'll go and have a look at the Ord River scheme in Kununurra, head out to El Questro, where you can do the walk to Emma Gorge. So this is about 6.8 kilometre round trip. Very refreshing water, we'll say, when you get down to Emma Gorge. And then you could go up north, and going up north will take you up to the tiered waterfalls of the Mitchell Falls. You'll experience the whole Mitchell Plateau before making your way back down through the Gibb River Road around to Bell Gorge, and experiencing the destination around Bell Gorge, which will include some swimming as well. Now, we also have another alternative itinerary, which is with Purnululu, Jacinta.
Yes, it is. So this is on quite a different vessel, La Bello. She is a vessel that can take up to 180 passengers. And the cruise here, as you can see, can take you from Broome all the way up to Darwin. So that last day is a full day cruising at sea. So with 180 guests, we do have 90 balcony staterooms, so really beautiful modern staterooms. Of course, it's got all the mod cons like a pool, lovely dining areas, both al fresco and fine dining inside, and a lovely theatre room where they do hold presentations every evening with their expedition team of up to 12 on board. So a lovely option for those who want to head all the way to Darwin on a slightly larger vessel that is a little bit more contemporary.
Still private charter with APT, which is great as well. And
Absolutely.
fitness, we need to have a reasonable level of fitness, don't we?
I think we do, yes, especially for the Kimberley region, whether it's land or sea, a sense of adventure is definitely a must. For the cruising, I think one great element here is getting in and out of the Zodiacs is reasonably easy, as you've seen throughout the presentation. You do need to have sturdy feet, particularly when we're walking up some of those uneven terrains that are certainly not man-made paths. But the great thing is on the cruise, if you are feeling tired one day, you can simply stay on board and enjoy the facilities of our beautiful ship. If you are doing the land, generally there are, of course, lots of walks included that do have uneven terrain, as you can see in the picture here. So a really good set of walking shoes are important. And of course, if you can walk at least 3 kilometres unaided, then you should be fine on our Kimberley land excursions as well.
I think I think most people are looking at the Kimberley now anyway, but it's definitely a destination to do while you can, while you're nice and fit and able. Jacinta, thanks for today. It's been wonderful reminiscing of the awesome adventures that we had up in the Kimberley. Folks, if you'd like to hear any more information, please go back into your local travel agent. They'll be able to talk to you about the different seasonality. Again, the start of the season, huge waterfalls. End of the season, 30,000 humpback whales migrating to the Kimberley. That's what you'll experience in August, September. Detail the different cabin types, the prices, the deals. But as you would expect, the Kimberley is selling fast for 2021. Kimberley cruising in particular is very popular. And a lot of our cruises have sold out already. So if you are thinking about Kimberley cruising for your next holiday, please go into your local travel agents and book in your next Kimberley cruise. And we look forward to seeing you soon. Thanks, Jacinta.
Thanks, Scott.